So, I'm Jason Brimberg, and I've been working with JP Morgan for the past year and a half now, full-time. Prior to that, I was a consultant working with JP Morgan, doing a number of different things, primarily agile coaching. So we worked with teams and then trained Scrum Masters and the delivery teams around how to execute in an iterative fashion. So I was a Scrum Master as well as a business consultant. So worked on process reengineering programs and defined deliverables and artifacts that showed process flows primarily in U.S. cash equities in the asset management side, on the institutional investment side, around how all the PMs work with the investment advisors and the investment analysts to actually enter the orders into the OMS, then all the way through how that was executed through the different equity infrastructure that exists. So that's my experience at JP Morgan. Prior to JP Morgan, I was with Sapient Global Markets for 8 years. So Sapient is a technology consulting firm. I was hired as a developer straight out of undergrad. I have a computer science and engineering background. So I was hired as a developer. The very first project that I was staffed on at Sapient was with Merrill Lynch. So in Merrill Lynch, we instituted this program where we worked with the sell side to define a client service offering for cross-asset class hedge funds. So we developed this whole program. This had the support of the CTO at the time, Dow Kim of Merrill Lynch, and then we defined this new role and this whole new organization to support all these cross-asset class hedge funds that had new problems that the market really hadn't dealt with and hadn't consistently addressed in the past. So we gave those clients a single point of contact, whereas they were able to understand the inner workings of Merrill Lynch and then provide first-class customer service and support to those hedge funds that might be transacting in multiple types of securities at any given time. I've done a number of other programs within Sapient. I mentioned my agile coaching experience, and then I've done a number of business analysis programs. So I've worked with another division of Merrill Lynch following that cross-asset class hedge fund experience to focus on commodities. So I was out in Houston, Texas, and we were looking at implementations for Solark and natural gas, as well as OpenLink for power trading. So two projects and two asset classes that I had really no familiar with before going into that. Really just had some fixed income and equities background prior to that engagement, but then ramped up and understood the inner workings and some of the protocols. The nomenclature within those two markets, and then was able to project manage a set of projects to implement Solark and to implement OpenLink, as well as at the time. So that was around 2008 when Merrill Lynch was acquired by Bank of America. So what happened, because Merrill Lynch really was doing every kind of commodity transaction under the sun, both on the physical delivery side and on the financial security side, they could account for Bank of America's entire book of business that they were transacting out of New York. So they took all those New York positions and then novated them onto the the Merrill Lynch infrastructure. So I worked through identification of, okay, what exists out there within Bank of America, how could we fit into the Merrill Lynch infrastructure, what are the exceptions. Some of the structured products were a bit of a headache, but we tracked all of this, and then those clients that are associated with those types of products, because there was all these legalities. We had to get their agreement to be novated to a new legal entity. So we did that. We managed that process with the business and tracked all the progress. Another project that I just want to mention real quick is an integration that we did with Bloomberg. So we worked with Bloomberg to define a new product, a product that they necessarily couldn't develop on their own. So we partnered with order management systems. You know, 3 of the 4 largest order management systems by market share, and we defined a new product for equities. So Bloomberg customers get IOIs, indications of interest. So all this data comes in, you know, to either buy or sell a block of equities at some price. So, you know, most of this is just noise. The clients have no intention to transact in that security under that name. They just get all this information that's very unstructured from Bloomberg. We built this intelligent IOI add-on to each of these OMSs, wherein you can see a short list of, so it was basically a smart filter. So based off of what names you had in your blotter, it would sort that and really let you see only IOIs for those names. So that way the client could then transact on those IOIs, and if that seemed like an attractive price, they could increase their position. They could, you know, they could sell off their current position in either of those cases. So that was another product that I defined with Bloomberg, and then looked to, you know, we actually built working proof of concept with 3 OMSs, and then we had a strategy to scale. Unfortunately, between Sapient and Bloomberg, liability discussions and Bloomberg's high-priced lawyers that wouldn't budge at all in terms of the liability clauses within our contract, did not let this program scale as we would have liked. So we handed off the IP to Bloomberg and walked away. But that was a very interesting exploration. That's my background. I've done a diverse things professionally. I was a computer science and engineering student at the University of Pennsylvania, where I focused on computer science and development, as well as finance and math. You know, filling all of those with Wharton classes.
Nice job. So what did you think?
A bit all over the place, but I tried to at least, you know, start in reverse chronological order, right? So starting with my JP Morgan experience, then diving into, you know, the background that I had at Sapient.
Yeah.
I can hear myself sometimes using filler words and thinking and actually looking up, as you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
So I don't know, some coaching around how not to do that, I think, would go a long way. And, you know, at first I thought I was just going to kind of go bullet point by bullet point off of my resume, but then I just kind of had it, I don't know, was more genuine and went with the flow of almost stream of consciousness, right, in terms of what I want to talk about, given, you know, the audience in the room.
Yeah. I had written down, I thought you seemed genuine as well. That was one of the things I had written down. You seemed pretty natural. You seemed as very consistent with how you talk, you know, just as we're having a conversation. This is very conversational. What feedback would you have?
The content, the role what you did in JP Morgan, when you start explaining that seems to be very, very less when you talk about the Sapient stuff. So it looks like your interest is more towards that than what you have done. That's understanding involved with your profile, actually.
Yeah.
So what are you looking to do? What's your
So
goal?
project management,
Okay.
potentially outside of risk.
agile?
Yeah, so that would be ideal, right? An agile program but actually, you know, not so much coaching, more so in, you know, a Scrum Master type function. Yes, executing or product owner.
That's the big thing now.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
And why do you want to leave where you are now?
So they're reorganizing
Oh, yeah.
risk and the risk management function.
Oh, okay.
I think it's a good time.
I hear you.
Any other feedback on the presentation?
I hope I say this the right way. I didn't, you were sharing your experiences, but I wasn't sure what you brought to the table from those experiences, not to make them moot in
Yeah.
any way. So, in terms of the audience, it wasn't clear what was in it for the audience.
Sure.
So I got a good sense of historically what you've done. I just wasn't sure what that could mean
Right.
for me hearing it or for me wanting to.
So there's no so what? So what does that mean?
So
What
that
value
piece-
can I get out of it?
So that piece,
Yeah.
I would have to sort of infer that from the experiences
Got
that
it.
you discussed.
I'm sure if this
So
was a
you'd pass, you
real,
wouldn't hire me.
No, I didn't say that.
I'm sure if this was a real interview, you
Yeah.
would be like,
Yeah.
so, what I
Here's
can
what I
bring,
can bring
what I
to the
can do
table
for the,
for you.
you know the
Yeah.
job description, and you can
Right.
tailor it. Yeah.
I had a similar reaction, although the way I thought about it was, I was curious, what did you like about it? So you talked
What I
about the
like
things
about-
that you did, and you walked us through the order, and I'm thinking, did you like this better than this?
Right.
What was it about that you liked? You were there a little bit longer, so the Bloomberg thing seemed interesting. You know, I'm trying to relate it back to or infer
Sure.
my experience, because I've worked with many of those groups, and I'm thinking, my first thought is, what do you like about it? What is it that, you know, and then how does that tie to what might be the so what for the, but I started with the first piece. I think you went to the second piece, what's the so what? And I'm thinking what you like about it.
Okay.
So
And
that,
so the thing in my head was, what do you want to do? You've done all of
Yeah.
this, what do you want to do now?
Yeah, what do you
Type
want?
of thing.
Right. Okay. No, that's fantastic.
Which is
That's
what he
great.
asked.
yeah,
And that should probably be included either in, you know, the opening or the conclusion, right? If you think about this
Or
as
both places.
or both, yeah.
You lead with it and you end with
Sure.
it.
and usually with this, within this industry, it's bottom line up front,
Right.
bottom line on top, get to it.
Right.
I'll walk you through. I even think about it from general presentational style. You could say I'm going to walk you through my history quickly, then I'm going to walk you through the impact that I had there, and then I'll take you through what I'm looking for.
Right.
Bottom line is I want to get into, you know, project management role and execution or whatever it is.
Right.
So
Like that.
and then you could wrap up with it, to your point, Giselle, you could end with it also. I thought you seemed very genuine. As I said earlier, you seem very conversational. Like you seem genuine. The one thing I noticed, you have a vocal intonation pattern that goes the other way. That at the end of it, you'll go up. So working with the Merrill Lynch infrastructure and Bloomberg. Now the reason I say that, the only reason I noticed it is because one of the things you said earlier was about establishing control. And that could be a subtle thing that could give people, probably not consciously, but a sense that I can take this in another direction if I need to. Sorry, I don't mean to keep it.
No problem. Just don't have me.
No. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it could, and I don't think you come across that way. I just wonder, because we're hearing the things anecdotally from the other side, that when you drop it, people tend to perceive that as being more influential. And so I wonder your pattern goes up a little bit.
So it's almost like I'm asking a question. It kind of the voice trails up.
Not, and in some cases, yes. In some cases, I think the way I could say it concisely, I wonder if it could be perceived as tentative.
Okay.
That's the potential risk that I see.
Right.
Not that it would or does. You did notice the I thing going up. It was major. It was mainly structure, I think, and to some of the questions that came up. But I think you have a very genuine style. That was the big thing because you talked about controlling meetings. I think if you have a definitive structure, this is what I'm going to tell you about. Let me walk you through, and at the end, and so I think structure and also some of the vocal pieces could help with control. There are other pieces which we'll talk about too. You have a nice presentational style.
Thanks.
I struggle with that. Like a lot of times when I give a statement and I'm looking for feedback, I tend to give it as a question, and it comes off kind of weak. Like I'm looking for validation, where I should just make the statement says everybody agree, just be stern about it, as opposed to like just that my voice inflection goes into like a question as opposed to this is what we're doing.
Yep.
Any questions? So
Yep.
I struggle with that sometimes.
And yeah, a lot of it comes back to the how you say it.
Yeah.
How you say it, what's the question you ask? You can talk about asking questions and people,